being here physically and Zoom. Some of our members could not make it, and I think I should introduce everybody. Here we have Tara as our guest speaker, Tara Steele, Janet Jones, Patricia, Alan, Sean, Caroline, Crystal, and Susan. There we are. And sorry, Debbie and Daryl are on the screen. So welcome everybody. I know Tara will give us a good talk, and I'm sure you will. It's okay, I got my little cane there. You're all right? Yeah. Snack it. Good. Tara has years of experience working in the Canadian healthcare system with older adults with diverse generic development, physically and cognitive conditions. Tara has an exceptional understanding of the challenge they face. She strongly believes that knowing helps us to progress through life, maximizing our potential to live with confidence by understanding how our own attitudes, behaviors, choices, and lifestyle has helped or hurt us. As a therapeutic fitness professional focused on older adults and has an honored diploma in occupational and physiotherapy assistant, certified personal fitness specialist with CanFit Pro. In off times, she has made meaningful memories with family and spoiling her husband's 4 cats.
Cats. I live with them. If you have cats, you know.
Yeah.
They have staff.
Exactly. That's right.
I'm head chief bottle washer for them.
Okay. All right. So I'll let you have it.
Well, good morning. Thank you.
you.
Very nice. And I would like to thank Susan for inviting me to come and spend a little bit of time with you. I love nothing better than talking. Even if there's nobody around to listen, I still talk to myself. So Susan told you a little bit about my educational background in the last few years, but I was very fortunate to grow up in an intergenerational home with grandparents that would come, of course, about this time of the year. The weather is nice, so up they come. It gets cold and they would go back. And always loved being around my grandparents and their friends, and was raised to be seen and not heard. So as long as you sat quietly, you could gather a lot of information. And so that started me on the road to working with older adults. My grandparents died within 6 months of each other in 1988, and there was a huge void. And then I started working as a nurse's aide, summers and weekends during high school and university. And I thought, okay, I can make a difference. I will become a nurse. But after doing that for about 2 years, all I saw were nurses handing out pills back in the day where they were still smoking and charting. And I thought, there has to be more. There has to be more than just medications. But obviously we live in a medical society, everything to focus on illness and disease and things like that. And I went, no. So I kind of switched gears after doing undergraduate studies at Bishop's University in the eastern townships of Quebec, lovely place. I then went on to study gerontology and long-term care at, I will still continue to call it Ryerson University, now Toronto Metropolitan University. So that is where I have come from, and then I detoured for a little bit onto Bay Street. The one thing we all know is that none of us are the same, regardless of what diagnosis, what condition, where we may be from, and things like that. I'd let them come on.
Come on in.
Oh.
Come on in.
Welcome. Join in, there's some cutlery. Here, just And here's some cutlery for you. Excuse me for reaching in front of the camera.
Mhm.
Oh, let you get set.
There's a chair here.
Let's grab another chair for you.
Did you need another chair there?
We'll let it post. There we go. We got it. Yeah, it's just clear. That's fine. I'll move it. That's required.
It's not, because I feel wrong. So yeah, so none of us are the same. I think that just goes without saying. But it's also important to realize that there are variations in ourselves as well. Quite often, my husband, I will let you know, I will be 54 in September. My husband is debating whether he's 55 or 56, and I'm like, okay, that causes me great concern. And we've been together since at least I was 21. So significant portion of my life with this one man. So as we get older, 25 was a bit of a crisis for me. My life was not going on the trajectory that I had hoped, maybe that my parents had planned for, but I got that crisis out of the way. My husband, on the other hand, did well until he hit about 50. And then his attitudes and his mind started to change. However, in the last 5 years, as his beard has gotten whiter, he's like, when am I getting the discounts? And this is great. He has no more edit button, no more filter, and he just says what he thinks. And if you don't like it, you're welcome to leave. But one of the things he often will say is he met somebody and he said they look really good for their age. And I look at him and I say, I don't know what that means. What does that mean, looking good for your age? So I don't think my mom would mind. My mother turned 88 on Wednesday, and I start to well up. And again, she is a great example, a great role model, and is always, and hopefully will continue to be, a mentor for me through the rest of my life. And my mother was always active, very outgoing, loved her career, loved her family, her friends, volunteering, active in our church, where I know some of our members here from, since I was little, and Mr. Hughes used to tug at my ears coming down the aisle. And I thought, oh boy, getting older, how is my mom going to respond to this? Well, my mom embraced everything. When she started to need a cane, well, she started with the Nordic walking poles, then she got a cane, then she decided to rollator, and she loves to travel. But we know standing tolerance can be challenging, walking for long, to do this length of the hall, how many times may you have to rest? So she says, I think that I should get a scooter. And I said, well, go for it. And she's got her scooter when we go on vacation and she's beeping, why are people not getting out of my way? And she's got to give them a chance, Mom. So when I taught, I work in the community for SE Health or St. Elizabeth, our office is just off of Allstate Parkway. And so I do meet people from various backgrounds, different ages, and although I know how old they are, it is irrelevant to me. People do the best they can, as Churchill said, what they've got, where they are. But I have started to look, and I'm like, my goodness, this person is 67, this person is 71, and require more assistance, bathing, dressing, PSWs, nurses. So I say to my mom, I would love if you could come and spend a day with me to see that the age is a number, but it's all about what we as individuals can do. So age being a number, looking good for your age, whatever that may mean. But again, our Western culture and society, we tend to think in terms of chronological age. I'm 14, I am 67. The number of birthdays we celebrate seems to be very important. But because of our individuality, it's an imperfect indicator of our actual competence, what I can do and how well I can manage from day to day. So individually, we age at different rates and we age differently within our own bodies. Some people we know, we see have experienced increased frailty, decreasing strength, but they remain mentally competent, while others are unable to hold a conversation, to make appointments, to go to a medical appointment on their own, or to complete the familiar tasks or activities of daily living. They require help from a lying position to seated, from seated to standing. Quite often in the community, we're working on transfers because that is one of the times where we see people falling. And of course, a fall for anybody has the potential to be extremely catastrophic and life-changing. So just because we're another year older does not mean that as I keep climbing up in my chronological age, that I'm going to assume that I am going to need help with the activities of daily living or the instrumental activities of daily living. Planning, cooking, shopping, preparing meals, using the computer, using all of the advanced technologies that we have now, taking care of the house and paying the bills. So while there are a lot of individuals, of course, there are commonalities among all of us. Our bodies do change. Before the pandemic, BC, as I will call it, I was in the best shape of my life. I'm not tall, I'm 5'3¼ I may be starting to shrink, right? Mine starts to compress, but I became more physically active. I was active during high school, university, it kind of petered off, but then I do group classes, falls prevention, working with people with COPD and other respiratory difficulties. So most mornings I start with 4 hours of fitness classes, and then I go into the community every 30 minutes, going to a different home and working on a personalized plan developed by a physiotherapist. So we all lose mineral content, our lean body mass, our muscle density, all of that can decrease and quite often results in weight loss, where we start to see, of course, that increased frailty. So we all experience decline in the bodies, and it is amazing to me that people think aging happens after the age of 65, like a switch is lit. And I said, well, what do you think you have been doing from the time you came into the world? We are aging from the day we are born until the day when we're no longer aging and all of the body processes have stopped. So it is important to know that we can continue well beyond 65, well beyond 70 and 80. I have 2 ladies in one of my classes down at the Donway, Retirement Independent Living. One turned 101 this week, and another will be 103. Grace, who is turned 101, does not use a cane, does not use a walker, does not use a rollator, and she absorbs all of the information. A lot of the times what can be discouraging for me is when people limit. They assume, and we know what happens when you assume, if you separate those words, been to enough conferences, you know. Why would I want to limit what I believe somebody can do? Give them the opportunity to try. So we'll talk about this a little bit more as we get into it, things like balance. If we don't continue to challenge ourselves with anything in life, we never progress, we can't learn, we can't adapt and do all of that. I'm just keeping my eye on my time here. So mobility, challenge for everybody. Generally middle-aged things start to decline, we start slowing down, but there are 3 key factors that we need to talk about or be aware of, being mindful, that can contribute to the decline in our mobility. So I will quote some studies, making sure that nobody thinks I'm plagiarizing. We know that that can be a very common thing. So a study by Reed and Fielding in 2012 found that on average, by the age of 60 to 70, 10 to 20% of our muscular power and strength has been lost. And this rises to 30 to 50% for some after the age of 70. So as our bone strength weakens due to stress on the body, we start to see tiny little cracks. It becomes easier to get compression fractures, which again, integral to keeping the strength of the bone. So these cracks, compression fractures weaken our bones even further. We see decreased flexibility in our ligaments and tendons. That affects the way we walk, our gait patterns. Depending on our gait, we increase pain, we start to wear down joints. If one knee goes on one side, the other side starts to compensate, that knee goes, then it moves to the hip, and so on. So people often say, do you think I should have surgery? I said, that is a question I cannot answer for you. So I'm gonna ask, and I said, we need to make a list of your questions. You need to ask your doctor, all of your healthcare providers, any considerations. And of course, I'm sure you are all aware, we, in our model of healthcare here, there must be informed consent. I need to know what the procedure is, what's involved, who's going to do it, possible side effects, outcomes, and should I choose not to have a procedure done, what can I expect? So for me, knowledge, as Susan said, knowledge is power. We do with it what we feel is best for ourselves. So getting in and out of the chair. Again, we came here today. Susan's got her stool. We had some little chairs. We had some bigger ones. I don't have to tell you how adaptive and resilient you are. And I love people who are creative problem solvers. There's more than one way to get something done. So as I go through, I hope you get some takeaways for yourself and things that you'll be able to put into practice from this afternoon going forward. So how we adapt to physical changes and physiological changes in our bodies varies by individuals. Some people very, very concerned about their appearance, how they look. They don't want to be perceived as being old. So we think of all of the actors, movie stars, singers, some aging very well, gracefully, as we hear. And then I look at somebody like Sylvester Stallone, I'm like, you went too far. Kenny Rogers went way off the deep end. You don't even look like yourself. So there are people though, that for them, it makes them feel good to get a little Botox, a little nip, a little tuck. If that works for them, that's wonderful. I have embraced my graying hair. However, my mother, my father, and my husband, not so much. My father would say, but it makes you look older. I said, Dad, I'm gonna be 54. I'm not young anymore, I'm younger. And I said, and if you had hair, it would be white too. So I gave in, and I dyed my hair. I chemically straighten about once a year. So I get the copper down here and I think, this is way too much. It's nothing that defines me. And I don't know if you remember my grandmother, but she had the most beautiful white and silver and black hair. And to me, that was beauty. So if I can have hair like that, I'll be half as beautiful as she was. So again, we see lots of commercials for serums and creams and all of these things anti-aging, like it's a bad thing. It's our outlook, our attitude that will make all of the difference for us. So there's a difference, do you think of it as a wrinkle or is it a character line? And I have to say, the older I get, I tell my husband, God forbid something happens to you, anybody under the age of 65, I am not interested in, I'm not gonna go out on a date with you. I find older men extremely attractive because of the character. When I can look at a face and go, I can see a good life. I like that. I don't want anybody with less wrinkles than I do. So, for me, and I hope for all of you, that what should concern us and be foremost in our minds is how will I be able to continue to live my best life, continue to live to the best of my ability, to bring the fullest meaning to my life. We've got one shot around. We need to make the most of it, and it is never, never too late. So people who think of themselves in terms of what can I do versus how I look tend to age better. Their mental health tends to be better. Their psychological and physical well-being tends to be better. Again, according to some more studies. So I did happen to actually listen to, I think the last conference you had, it was a physiotherapist dealing with arthritis. Watched that on the Zoom or Goober, and I thought that was great. So their commonality. So I can talk at a big level up here, but I want you to be able to have some takeaways, things that are easy to recall, not a whole lot of verbiage and things like that. So again, aging has been happening since the time you left your mother's body, not something that happens after the age of 65. We have a lovely little young man here with us. He's aging. Although we do know that the adage of closer you get to middle age, time does appear to speed up. So what can we do? Top 10, I think everybody's heard of the top 10 tips. And as I decided last night, I'm like, oh no, we ended with 1. So I'm going to reverse my notes here. If you can't hear at any time, let me know. So embracing aging. We can't run from it, we can't hide from it. It is universal, no matter which part of the world we live in. So I want you to embrace the process, tune into your thoughts and emotions. Mindfulness is a concept that has become very talked about in the last couple of years, where we can focus, tune the world out. That making that time is very, very important to connect with your thoughts, to connect with your feelings, and hopefully, if you've been doing negative self-talk, you change that and to create a more positive affirmations. I think they used to do that on Saturday Night Live when it was still funny. Positive affirmations, and things I can look in the mirror and I can say to myself. Negative self-talk isn't good for anybody, and certainly as we get older. So focus on what you can do versus focusing on the limitations. And I don't have to tell you, looking around the room, the strategies that you've employed, that you have adopted, different from strategies that I may need, but you've gotten things done. And there are a lot of people out there, again, who don't know, many little people, or people who are different. And I said, what do you mean you don't know people who are different? We're all different, but this focus on disease, on diagnoses, that is part of what makes you you. So don't make it the focus, and I'm sure you have not. Resiliency is part of that, something that younger people, sadly, as I see the demise, are not building. Their parents are not fostering resilience in their children. Everybody is a winner. Everybody gets top marks for participation, but there are winners and there are losers in this life. You need to be a graceful winner. And when we lose, that should be a motivating factor. Well, as my father said, why didn't you get 100 out of 100? What did you not do that you can do next time? So I think it is important to fail, to have missteps. This didn't work. I've got to find another approach to it. And then sharing information again, very, very important. So being resilient, the ability to bounce back. Literally sometimes the ability to pick myself up from the floor, dust myself off, and get myself going on to the next task. So again, try to practice mindfulness where you can. Quite often the shower, I find it's a great place. The world is tuned out, you've got the water falling, the sound of it is relaxing, and it is soothing, and is usually a quite personal, intimate time. Use the time there. Driving, probably not the best idea, the way the city is. We were talking about bike lanes before, keep the focus on the road, right? We don't want the mind wandering, but setting up a specific time where you can focus on things that are working, things that may be bothering you, and say, okay, what can I do to keep moving myself forward? So embracing aging, one of our top 10s. Prioritizing, pacing, positioning, concepts again coming out of occupational health, which is very, very important for us. So I'm gonna come back here. Sort as I decided, my brain works very differently, which is a good thing, sometimes not. So understanding your health status, there is nothing that I can come and tell you here today about being a little person, depending on which type of skeletal dysplasia you have. You are the experts. So that is outside of my scope of practice, outside of my expertise. But what I'm putting forth today works for everybody. And when we get to the end, we find that we might have to adapt some things for you and for your stature. So regular checkups, we know that that's important. Seeing the doctor, your dentist, your eye specialist, and any other healthcare providers that you need. Get to them at the earliest signs. You will hear constantly, listen to your body. You know your baseline, right? So, which is different from everybody else. And one of the great things I learned from my mother, I'm a stick my head in the sand. I don't necessarily want to know what's going on, because then I'm gonna have to face it head on. And I will tell you that usually does not have a good outcome. I had an ectopic pregnancy where we got 12 years ago, got married 2 days before I turned 34, so I'm already a geriatric pregnancy. It was not meant to be. I knew for 3.5 months something was off, but I was very hopeful. I was very, very hopeful until one day I went to the bathroom and I bared down and I blew that fallopian tube apart. It was all I could do to crawl into the bed. Had I acknowledged what was happening and what wasn't right, I wouldn't have lost that too. So I suggest get to the doctor. Anything changes, it may be nothing, but it may be something that could lead to something more significant. Have good relationships with your doctors. We can't shop around for doctors anymore. You get one primary healthcare provider. We can't interview them. There are some apps out there, rate your doctor and so on. So if your doctor has decided that they need to retire, my suggestion is talk with friends, with family members. Do they have a doctor who is compassionate, who is more willing to listen than to tell you what needs to be done? That primary healthcare relationship is extremely important. And if they're well connected, my mom does not seem to wait for very much. I hear people waiting 6 months, 8 months, 10 months for an MRI. My mother is not waiting that long. So her doctor has a great team of people, a great network, and you may not be there yet, but you may have a doctor for many things, a different specialist. And that's again where it's important for you to be proactive, think about yourselves. Healthcare is being shared a little bit more electronically now. That is good. That can be bad because your information is out there for the world to see. And we know we've had some troubles in hospitals in the last couple of years. So don't neglect yourself, schedule your checkups, stick to them. Now, as I go through all of these, not everything works for everybody else. My mother says, when are you going to the doctor? I don't know, Mom. She says, well, you know the doctor doesn't have you as a patient anymore. I said, I know, but I do monitor myself, how I'm doing, and should the need arise, I've asked him, I said, would you take me back? And he said yes. So chronic medical conditions, multiple medications, challenges, right? There can be interaction between the drugs. Very important that you know what those are. I know it's very challenging to read the tiny little print on the bottles. I do like the young people, I take the phone out of the magnifying, I'm like, okay, I can read and I know what to look for. So very, very important. You may or may not be at the point where you have a geriatrician. I think that they are fantastic because again, a medical doctor, a regular GP learns on a typical patient. None of us in this room are typical patients. Generally a white male of full stature. So my needs are going to be very, very different. Your needs are going to be very, very different. So geriatricians at least have a specialty of working and understanding the changes that are going on in somebody over the age of, and we use the marker of 65, that arbitrary age picked after the war where they're like, yeah, this sounds about a good age for us to start pensions, but that is now taken root, and that's when we start to think of ourselves as getting old. So advocating for your health, I'm sure you do it every time you go to the doctor. Your parents, when you were younger, would have done their best to advocate for you. So now it's your responsibility. Family members, caregivers, different people have different levels of involvement from other people in their lives, but you need to take the lead and thinking about this going forward of taking medications, following your health plan, not waiting for somebody to say, well, the doctor said you need to do this. You need to be aware. Again, very, very important. And if you start to take these habits now, they will continue with you down the years. Sleep, 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 sleep. It can be a challenge. You know, for some of you, sleep apnea may be a condition you have. If you are to be wearing a CPAP machine, please wear it. Again, oxygen, vital, without oxygen, can cause a lot of problems. We have a very good friend, he rents our basement apartment, wonderful guy. He's maybe about 5'8", but all of his weight is around the front, that heart attack, right, the pressure on the chest, on our ribs and our internal organs. He does not wear a CPAP machine, he has a CPAP machine. So he doesn't like to wear it, so he says, well, I just fall asleep on the couch. And I said, have you fallen off the couch? And I'm waiting because I only ask questions I know the answer to. And I've been in the laundry room and I've heard the thought. He won't admit, right? And I don't need to pick on men, but men generally are not very good at letting us know what's going on. Oh no, I'm fine, I'm not in pain, I'm not in pain. But he is not sleeping well. He is not getting quality sleep. So you should be in your bed, lying down, being able to stretch your body out and wearing your CPAP machine. You're not doing yourself any help. You are stressing your heart. You're stressing your lungs, and they are already under stress. Unfortunately, fingers crossed, he's not going to have to start dialysis. But he has not managed himself very well. And so there we are. So while I'm compassionate and empathetic, if we've been given the tools and we choose to ignore and not use all of the tools in our toolkit, the only person we can look at and say, this was my responsibility and I have failed myself. So sleep, very important. Sleep hygiene may be a term that you have heard of that started to develop lately, you know, all these new buzz terms. But basically we're talking about the habits and behaviors that affect the quality and the duration of your sleep. So again, over 65, the Sleep Foundation says that you should get on average 8 hours of sleep a night. Okay, that's marvelous. I can't imagine, on a weekend, because I'm busy, I will get about 8. But I'm honest, I'm realistic. Part of what I do for myself after being with people who generally are sick, some are palliative, the emotional toll of my job, my body can handle it. It's my heart and my head that struggle. When I see other people struggling, no supports, limited care supports, nobody should be going through life by themselves. So think again, do you know somebody who lives on their own? Somebody who may not have a big family? I have no siblings. My husband has one sister, she's in Lakefield. A niece that decided to cut her father off, so she has eliminated herself from the equation. One nephew. So as I think about getting older, what is my plan? What is my plan to take care of myself and to help take care of my husband? The answer is me, because right now, there's nobody else really for me to turn around and ask. So for my mental health, I get home late, finish work, relax. When my husband goes to bed and the cats are quiet, it's my time. I'm a night person, I always have, and the pandemic affected all of us. Greatest effect to me was the time that I go to bed. I'm doing much better than the going to bed at 4:15, 4:30 in the morning, waking up at 9 o'clock in the morning. Now, my body has adapted. When I did go back to the doctor just to make my parents stop talking, and I told him what I did for a living, I couldn't believe. He says, well, you need to get more exercise. No, I said, one concern I have is, could you check my sodium? I was addicted to sunflower seeds. Like I was traveling 2 weeks and I'm taking 12 bags of sunflower seeds because if I don't have them, it's the panic, all of that anxiety, the withdrawal symptoms that when you're addicted to anything, when it's not there, you start to feel. And I thought, this is having control over me. So I asked him to test my sodium. Sodium, fine. Iron. He says, you are really anemic. He said, and I think you've been this way for about over 10 years, and your body has learned to adapt. So gave me some pills, and I was very good at taking them for about 5 weeks, because I'm not in the habit of taking medications. And I remember the first morning, I'm crossing Bathurst and Steeles, and I'm like, wow, it's 9:30, and I feel really alert. And I'm like, is this how the rest of the world is when they're going about? And you would think that would have been enough for me to continue. And they sit right next to me, right there. Half the time, more than half the time, I'm not gonna lie, I probably haven't taken them in about 5 months. So, sleep became something that I was easily able to forego because I wanted to make time in my day, low battery power, for something else. So what we can do, the sleep I get is quality sleep. My room is cool, my room is dark, I have very good mattress, your mattress, very important consideration, and your pillows, very, very important. So I know that sleep is important, but it's not one of the top 10 that I'm going to be able to achieve. And if you need chairs, let us know. So, children, I'm sure the little one over there has a bedtime. There is a schedule. So if we think it in that way, that is his sleep hygiene. For some people, it may be a nice warm bath, right? Avoiding, for us, caffeine, stimulants, alcohol, nicotine, anything else you may be doing, that's none of my concern, but we want to eliminate those spicy foods, fatty foods, in the few hours before we go to bed. And let's face it, some of the physiological changes that we're experiencing, weakening pelvic floors, making it through 8 hours without having to wake up to go to the bathroom. That's not really happening. It's when my husband and I bump into each other in the bathroom in the middle of the night. But what's the last thing he's doing? Charging about half a liter of water before he goes to bed. So doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? So things we can do, cool rooms, dark rooms, comfortable bedding, doesn't have to be expensive, but keep a consistent sleep schedule, have a regular relaxing bedtime routine. Some people like to infuse the room with lavender or use lavender-based products, which naturally are soothing and relaxing for us. We talked about avoiding stimulants, exercise. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. But the last thing you want to do before going to relax to go to bed is revving the engine up, doing some brisk walking or exercise. No, we finish that. I say do that before you've had your dinner. Then the rest of the night, my lights start to dim. All lights are on. Every hour, one or more lights comes off as I prepare my mind and my body for bed. Napping. Again, I have never been a napper. I wasn't a napper as a child. Getting tired to go to bed was never a problem. Getting tired to wake up continues to be a problem. I like to be in my bed. So I'm not a napper. Now, if I've had a really bad day, a really long day, a really stressful day, after I've eaten, we find this very common, right? Your tummy is full and the eyes start to close off. I spent Fridays with my parents after I finished classes. We had a lovely brunch together, and Mom had a busy week, and very unusual for her to start nodding off at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. My dad, that's pretty common. So napping, if you are a napper, nothing wrong with that, but try to limit your naps if you can to 30 minutes or less, the power nap. And again, try to avoid napping later in the afternoon. I have a lot of clients, I'm not a big believer in sleeping pills. Their efficacy declines after about 2 weeks, so they have to get stronger and more, and that is a vicious cycle you're not gonna get out of. If you're not doing much, the body is not that tired. I fall asleep 3-2, like your mentalist friend, and I am out for the duration of the time that I'm in the bed. So try to avoid naps later in the afternoon, try to avoid taking sleeping pills. I have a lot of clients. Why is this client napping at 4:30 in the afternoon when I know that they're trying to go to bed at 8? So of course, this is not gonna work. This is not a healthy habit. Our beds, for sleep and for intimacy. That's it. Some people like to hang out in the bed. First of all, every moment that you spend in bed, you get weaker and weaker, and our body batteries die off and they are no longer with us. Do you want me to pause for a moment?
Okay, hang on, sorry. It should be,
We still see you.
yeah,
Okay, you can see, okay, we can't see you, but if you can see us, then that's great. All
We
right.
still see you.
okay, there we go.
It says not charging.
Yeah, it should be okay, just because it's
So
not
if you
enough.
have trouble sleeping, again,
Try plugging
deep
into the
breathing
USB.
techniques can be very good. Practicing, maybe taking that moment for a little mindfulness, But the lying in bed, tossing and turning only makes it worse. Get up, go do something quiet, maybe read a few pages of a book. Mindfulness, again, coloring for some people, journaling, things again where the focus is on myself. It is a quiet activity, and I might say, okay, I'm starting to feel sleepy, and I take myself back to bed. So again, individually, I know that I can function quite well on less than 5 hours of sleep. I can also function staying awake for more than 24 hours. That is me. Everybody here is a little bit different. Staying socially active with family and friends and within our communities. Very, very important as we age. Sometimes, especially now, I hear a lot of people saying, this is one gentleman yesterday on Instagram story, I am no longer speaking to my mother. We don't share the same political opinions. I think she is blah, blah, blah. She's not listening, so I'm just not going to talk to her anymore. That relationship is over. And I say, oh, there's going to come a day where you're gonna realize, oh, I should have. We don't get do-overs in this life. People that are meaningful, spend time with. One of the great things that came out of COVID, FaceTime, WhatsApp, Zoom calls, right? So we have our friends in Saskatchewan joining us today. Before the pandemic, were we doing anything like this? No. And I know that here we have our Susan with the Zoomer Boomers, a way for you to connect. Again, you probably all have each other's numbers, and if not, get each other's numbers. You are great resources for one another and your friends. Reach out, maintain those friendships, and one thing I learned again from my grandparents, have friends of different ages. The older you get, the more younger friends you may need, and I think again, okay, who is younger? Who's gonna be able to drive me here if I can and do this? But it is important to have friends of all ages. Every stage in the cycle of lifespan development brings different opportunities for us, and we learn new things. So again, studies find that, and the participants were all over 65, who reported higher levels of social activity were more likely to experience positive moods, fewer negative feelings, and higher levels of physical activity. So if you don't have an active social life, again, ours took a beating. I come home on Friday, come up the stairs, I tend not to walk down the stairs again until Monday. We love being with friends, we're highly social, but we became isolated, right? In our tiny little bubbles, and it's been hard to get back out of the bubble. My best friend had we don't like Meghan Markle, no offense to anybody who does, brunch 2 weeks ago. Oh, Rich, you want me out in Oak Hill for 11 o'clock? That's really early, but you're my best friend, and I will be there. So again, sometimes we may not want to, but know that when we get to be with our friends and after we're done, we're generally very happy that we spent the time together. So reconnect with old friends. I have alumni weekend next weekend again. Some of my friends I have not seen since we graduated 35 years ago. And again, looking at Facebook, I'm like, okay, all right. Some are looking middle-aged, some are looking a little older, but the one consistent thing I see is like, they all have children. So I don't. So I get a little bit more rest and I get to spend a little bit more time on myself. But the sacrifice and rewards you're making are well worth it. So stay connected to the people that matter as you get older, very, very important. Build a new social network, seek it out. You may know somebody who is isolated, who doesn't get out. So maybe say, well, I'm going to invite 2 of my good friends, they don't know each other, and we continue that web out. Generally, you're going to be like-minded in some way, sharing similar interests or hobbies. And churches, again, great place to go if you have one, and if not, and you are Anglican and living in Scarborough, we can tell you about how wonderful St. Timothy's Asian Court is. Lots of things going on there. So having friends is a strong predictor of our mental health in older adulthood. Engaging our brain. The old adage, you don't use it, you lose it. Especially important for the body and for the mind. And again, everything we heard about, everything we talk about based in evidence, in the science, not just, and sometimes it was the platitudes, the wisdom of older people who who made the connections about what they saw and learned from many people around them saying the same thing. They can't all be wrong. So keeping your brain active, there are studies that say that that may stay off possible dementia. And again, getting older does not mean that you are going to have dementia, that you're going to develop Alzheimer's, develop Parkinson's. That is individual, but you have a better chance of maintaining your brain health if you keep it active, right? Puzzles are great. Sudoku, fabulous if you can figure it out. That's not one of my strengths, right? So my mom says to me again, right, this woman has just turned 88. She says, I see people on their phones all the time and they're playing games. Well, where do I get the games? I said, well, what do you want, Mom? She says, well, I don't know. I said, all right. We start with a few that I've tried, maybe you like those, puzzles for your brains. Because I had bought her crossword puzzles, word searches, again, where the brain has to think differently on different types of activities. So those are very easy to do. You're sitting not in your car, but you find a couple of minutes, sit on the phone, play some games, Tetris, problem solving ones, trivia, spot the difference where I'm actually having to focus my attention. The ones that they used to have in newspapers back in the day. What is a newspaper? Maybe have you seen the size of the newspaper? It's about this big. It's quite hilarious. So again, search out people who have common interests with you, people that make you feel good. Friends are so important, and I know for myself, I went through quite a bit of depression in my late teens, in my early 20s. Thank God for my roommates. Thank God for my best friend who would let me complain about anything. She would let me talk and talk and talk, which I have no problem doing. And then at the end of it, she says, so what are you gonna do? What's your plan? This is why she's my best friend. The people who say, oh, it's gonna be okay, don't worry. That is not helpful at all. Best to say nothing, but people are uncomfortable with silence, right? Silence is okay, but again, what am I going to do for me? She will support me in whatever I want. That is her job, but my job is to come up with a plan. So again, having friends is a strong predictor of your mental health in older adulthood. Stress. Anybody not have stress? And if you do not have it, I really want to know your secret. Stress, we tend to think of it in terms of the negative aspect of stress, as opposed to eustress. Stress is a motivator for good or for bad. And when we have eustress, that motivates us to make positive changes, to change our approach. Something is not working, I need to make a change. And again, individually, that's going to be very different for each of us. So for some people, getting older is stressful. You know, some people, they're looking, I've got a gray hair, and they're plucking it. Or they've got a wrinkle, and so they're buying all the creams and all the light therapies. And I'm like, save your money for something fun. A trip, sparkly piece of jewelry always make me feel really good. So focus on the good. Understand your triggers, right? Again, that's a term we're hearing a lot, especially if you watch a lot of videos on YouTube. Be careful what you watch. The news, very stressful. There is no good news out there. Watching the news, stressful things raise our cortisol levels, our stress levels. They make us old. My husband, I say, as soon as you hear me coming up those stairs, turn the news off. It sends me to the races. Nothing good happened today. I didn't look at the news last night, but I know there was probably some violent, aggressive behavior, some shooting, and I just get wound up. My parents have learned now, when I'm here, please turn off CNN, please turn off Fox, and I'm trying to work on my mother to turn off The View. We will leave some things alone again, right? Everybody is different. But with my husband, oh, he's off the charts. The world is different. The world is a crazy, crazy place. Since the pandemic, everybody's gone off the deep end. I live between Bathurst and Avenue Road, between the 401 and Lawrence. I live in a predominantly Jewish neighborhood. 2 Christmases ago, we talked about this man who says he's no longer speaking with his mother because they differ politically. Christmas, as my mother would say, got mashed up. I am a smoker, that is not good, but I'm honest, I own it. After dinner, before dessert, went outside, and my cousin came to join me, gives us a little time to chat. He was born with some developmental delays, but he's an educational assistant, he's out of support, he's doing great. But it's our time one-on-one, where he's comfortable with me to share, I can give him some tips, what's going on, anything I may be worried and concerned about. My husband comes flying out the back door, he's like, we're leaving now. I'm panicking, like, what, something catastrophic has happened. He's not even waiting for me, he's out the front door, my keys in his pocket, and he's pretty much halfway to the GO station at Port Union. He and my aunt differ. My aunt was fortunate enough to go to the Holy Land maybe 40 years ago. Obviously, strong impact on her outlook. My aunt is a devout Christian, you know Auntie Monica.
Yeah.
And so this was very, very challenging because, and sometimes I usually say the grace. And I thought, well, maybe I'll let Auntie Monica say it. This is at her home for Christmas. That's when everything went terribly wrong. So the focus not on praying for the peace of the whole world, but focusing on one side of the equation and not the other. She's on this side. My husband is on this side. And for neither of them is there a gray area. But her perspective very different. Again, I have seen the command centers at every major intersection down Bathurst. I've seen the shootings. I have seen the change in the way our Jewish neighbors are walking in larger groups to temple, much larger groups, being aware of who is around them. The world has become sick. It has become toxic. At one point, if you didn't have anything good to say, you just kept your mouth shut. But the hate and the vitriol, these are even thinking about it now. You can see the physical and physiological reaction in my body. It makes me angry. Seek peace and pursue it, Psalm 34:14. I want a peaceful life. I can't make a change in the peace all around the world. I can make my world peaceful. I can try and influence my parents and hope that has a ripple effect going out. So avoid triggers for stress. I avoid when I can driving with my husband. He is not patient. I drive hundreds of kilometers every week. I have to be patient. When I get to a client's door, everything, it's all about them. But he's like, why are they driving too slowly? And he's changing lanes, zipping back and forth. Oh God, you're gonna hit something. So it's very, very stressful. However, I do like to drink a little bit more than my husband. So he's the designated driver. So there's a trade-off, right? So again, lots of tips to follow, but not everything is achievable and realistic for everybody else. So sometimes, and I try not to, but he can feel my body just tense up, or sometimes I'm being fun. He takes the corner too tight, and I just whip myself against there, and he knows what I'm saying. Slow it down, slow it down. So one of the things we can do to relieve our stress, yeah, you can get Prozac, you can get all kinds of, why do you want more pills? Pills are not the answer. Pills are never the answer unless it is medically necessary to treat a certain condition. Breathing. Breathing techniques, something very, very important. You can do anytime, anywhere. And what we call deep pursed lip breathing. So I will stand so you can all see I demonstrate, because you want to avoid becoming mouth breathers. See, a lot of older people, they're breathing in and out of the mouth. We need to inhale through the nose, the filters in our nose, like our furnace, clean all the fuzzies and all the pollution and everything out. It cools the air as it makes it down into our lungs. So we breathe in through the nose, we breathe out through the mouth. But there is a muscle that we use, our diaphragm. And so our diaphragm runs generally between the pubis and our belly button. And when I'm gonna take my jacket off here, my mother's gonna be horrified that I'm here, don't tell her. But she was gonna ask you, you know she's gonna ask. So if I kind of turn in, my diaphragm here, when I breathe in, my diaphragm expands. right? It's making room in my chest cavity. Again, for some of you, the chest is tight. We need to build the space. I inhale, and when I exhale, my stomach comes back in. So generally I tell people, if you put your hand on the lower abdomen and on your chest, as you breathe in through the nose, you should be able to see the hand come out, and as I exhale through pursed lips, my diaphragm comes in. When we can, we try to prolong the breathing. So a pursed lip breathing, controlling the air out, like you're trying to flicker a candle, deeply in through the nose. When I'm working with my classes for people with COPD and emphysema, their respiratory capacity, of course, is not as large as mine. Your respiratory capacity isn't as much as mine, even though I have been a smoker for many, too many years. So that's something why I take breathing very seriously. If I want to continue with a lifestyle choice that is not good, and I know it's not good, but I'm not prepared to give it up yet, how can I mitigate the adverse effects of smoking on my respiratory system? So try to practice deep controlled breathing. If you inhale for a count of 3, you pause, and then through pursed lips, you try to control the air out for a count of 4. Eventually, and it may not be possible for everybody as an individual, to exhale for twice as long as you inhale. But deep breaths in, pause, and slowly out. And if you do it on your own instinctively, your eyes will likely close, right? That brings that literally tune the world out, focus on my breathing, good for any time that we are experiencing stress. And again, will improve your breathing efficiency. And we need oxygen to feed the body and our brain. Using our time wisely. Oh my goodness, it's 1:30. Energy conservation, very, very important. Again, you can do everything you want as you get older, you'll just not be able to do it all on one day. That's my mother, and my mom's a great example for anything, that's why I come back to her all the time. So last week was Holy Week for us. So she had to go to church Thursday to get her feet washed, and then it was Good Friday, and in between, and then Easter Sunday, and she has to make, we have certain foods, we always have multiple types of fish on Good Friday, so she's making saltfish cod, she's frying the fish, then Dad likes this, and Mom is cooking. My mom also doesn't like to cook, by the way, but this is special times, so she does it. So she's had to do the grocery shopping, she's had to prepare the food, cook the food, multiple different types of food, plus going to church, waking up earlier. My parents go to bed late, and they wake up maybe 10, 11 o'clock. My aunt says that's too late. Who cares? They're getting 8 hours of sleep, they've gone to bed at 3, they're enjoying the quiet time. Who cares, right? I'm not a morning person, and I said, you worked enough years waking up at 6 o'clock to hustle to the bus stop or shovel the car off. Now it's okay to rest. Just don't stay in that chair for more than 30 minutes at a time. So Mom, by the time I saw her on Sunday, Mom decided not to bring a cane, mistake, not to use her rollator. She has spinal stenosis, common for a lot of you, right? So that forward bending posture, as it decompresses our spine, brings relief. But it is the worst thing for our posture. As soon as my head comes forward or my body starts to tilt, my center of gravity has changed. And I'm sure these are concepts familiar to you. Your center of gravity, again, very different than mine. So it's bent over, and the pain is there. You can tell with the analgesic gait of the hopping along. And I'm like, okay, I'm generally not worried about my mother falling. I was very worried on Sunday. She's tired, she's overdone it. She says, do you think I did too much? I said, what is your body telling you? Yeah, I overdid it. Okay, but when I said you don't have to make up, no, we have to have them. So that was her choice to overdo it. And I say, Mom, sit. Do what you can in a seated position. It is much easier on the body. Some things, but she says, well, I'm not used to it. I'm like, Mom, you're not used to cooking anyway, so it shouldn't really make a difference, right? So there are 4 P's that we can use to practice energy conservation planning. Think ahead, plan. 1, generalization, that I don't like to make stereotypes. What I find with a lot of older adults is Susan's got her book, I've got mine, we plan ahead. My mother-in-law, Sunday, she would sit there, menu for the week, opposite page, now her grocery list, and any other things that she needed to pick up during the week. So should she have a doctor's appointment and she was gonna be passing by, whatever it may be, she knows, okay, well, I can stop and pick that up on my way home. I don't have to make another trip. So planning ahead. When we rush, things go wrong. Anything we do quickly, unless we are trying to win the 100-meter dash, is going to cause a problem. We eat too quickly, we choke, we drive too quickly, we're gonna get into an accident. I move, I turn and twist too quickly. Oh, I can pinch the nerves in my back. Take your time. Don't rush. And this is for the women. I don't know what it is about women having to run for the phone. Let the phone ring or keep voicemail or keep it with you. If you have your rollator, keep it on your rollator, or the other strategies that I've now done for all my other clients, have multiple units in different rooms, because most of my clients are high fall risks. So break tasks down into smaller manageable steps to reduce the overall expenditure you have to have at any one time. Time management, again, talk this down on CIBC, 4 categories: urgent and important. You gotta take care and prioritize those tasks. Something may be urgent, but not important. Second priority. Then you work down to it's important, not urgent, not urgent, not important. Those ones are left to the end. But don't make those ones be about you and the time for yourself. If you need to rest, you know in yourself periods of the day where you get a little tired. So schedule and plan, okay, I'm going to rest between this time and this time, recharge my battery, and be able to produce enough energy to make it through the rest of the day. So prioritize the essential activities, focus on the most important, usually ones necessary for the activities of daily living or the instrumental activities. Pace yourself, maintain a steady pace as you make your way through the day, and that includes when we are walking. Listen to your body, rest when you need to rest, especially when walking. If you try to continue walking and you're tired, you may not make it to your destination. What can happen? You could fall. What can happen when we have a fall? Broken hips, broken knees, or worst case scenario, you hit your head, develop a brain bleed. As a note, if you fall and hit your head, please have somebody assess you. Don't say, I'm fine, I'm fine. It doesn't take much. This thin little piece of boning that we have around our very delicate brain, easily injured. So listen to your body, listen to the signals, and take breaks when you need it. Positioning, again, I'm sure most of you have been taught good, proper positioning for yourself, proper body mechanics. Number 1, posture. Posture, posture, posture. I sound like a broken record. My mom is over like this. My beautiful, beloved Auntie Louise has a certain type of dementia. She was a nurse. My Auntie Louise, you put her in this chair and you sit her here. You can come back 8 hours later and her back is okay. 8 maybe a little bit, but I've seen her do 4. Straight as a board. Posture was always something integral to the way she conducted herself. It is something I obviously teach and work on, and nothing makes me happier than if I run into somebody in the hallway and they say, are you into physical fitness or into rehab? And I chuckle and I say, yes, why? And they say, because your posture is beautiful. Well, if I want to teach falls prevention, I better have good posture. So again, maintaining good posture where you can, or again, with the positioning of pillows in the right places. There are 3 curves, generally speaking, in the back, the neck and the low back, convex curving in, and our thoracic spine around the middle back that generally is out. Now, there may be hyperlordosis in the back, scoliosis and things like that, but where we need to have a pillow support is in the low back and the neck. Quite often, I come to homes and people love to prop up old people. Drives me bananas. And they've got pillows through the upper back. What that is doing as they lean back, may I touch you, is that it is applying pressure and pushing in the upper middle back, causing more back pain. Support the neck and support the low back and avoid having pillows around the back of your upper middle back. And again, step stools again. Anything that you've been doing, you may need to adjust, right? If we've lost a little bit of our height. And if you've got an assistive device, I know you're not leaving home without it. Sit when you can to perform those tasks. Again, requires less energy. Make the time for interests that you enjoy individually. Everybody should be able to enjoy time on their own. I'm an only child. I don't need anybody to keep me happy, but I do like having friends around. So find pursuits that you can do on your own and things that you can do with other people, again, to share. So when we understand the concepts of prioritizing, pacing, positioning, and planning, you will have more energy, and the energy you have will be able to be directed to things that are more than just, I gotta go shopping, I gotta go do this, having energy for our leisure pursuits, very, very important for you. So we come to practicing prevention. Again, your homes, likely all designed for you in mind, right? So again, important to avoid the bending, reaching, twisting. Stools you may have, I hope that if you have in the kitchen, there's ones with handles. My husband is 6 feet. I'm still clinging to 5'3¼ . So he inherited the cottage, so now he can make some adaptations, which I tried to do for my mother-in-law before, but some people resist. It's not my cottage. I've given the information. You don't want it, that's just fine. However, there's maybe a consequence. One of the consequences, before she finally agreed to changing the PSWs, or personal support workers, to cottage country for the summer, my in-laws were getting in the car, already didn't want them driving, to drive into town to get a room at the hotel so they could shower their bodies. A little bit ridiculous, but we didn't want to make changes here, and getting to that clawfoot bathtub was not so easy for a mother-in-law with hip replacements, knee replacements, fused vertebrae, and the whole 9 yards. So I said to my husband, we have no children. The children aren't going to be coming to help us do anything. So the bathroom needs to be redone. Resistance from him, I don't know who's going to win. I said we should have a shower room. The entire room is tiled with a drain in the middle of the floor. If we're in a wheelchair, I can wheel right on in, transfer, I got my hand thing, I can do my personal care, and you can continue to wash my back for me as you've done for the last 20 years, right? The kitchen. By and large, I'm the one that's in the kitchen. Can I tell you, and I hope that you've had this experience, for the first time in my life, I can stand on both feet and I can reach the top shelf. An amazing feeling, because I do not want to bring out a stool, step up on the stool. Now I'm leaning forward to take something from the cupboard. My hands are occupied. I lose my balance. Whoop. Now we're hoping that the ambulance is at the hospital in Huntsville, that there's no crash on the highway, and it can get to me before something catastrophic. So let's not go there. So I'm planning ahead. So I said to my husband, you have to install the cupboards when I am there. I'm the one that you can reach anything, anywhere. And that is marvelous. So I'd like to have that happen at the house. Baby steps, baby steps. So your environment needs to be conducive to you. When we go in, what is on the floor? What hazards are there? Bags, cords, cables, newspapers, anything that can cause us to trip and have a fall. Falls are what I call a dirty 4-letter F word, the only one I use, and it is in the first 3 questions I ask every client when I see them. Have you had any falls this week? We look at what had happened, what caused this fall, what can they do to prevent it from happening again. Being mindful of falls, and of course the second one is getting yourself up from a fall. I don't have to tell you, not that easy.
Not good
And it doesn't have to be, right?
But, yeah.
And it just doesn't look preschool, so do what you can there. So eating well, great selection of food out there. If you looked around, you'll notice that, oh, I did, because you were standing next to me. I did put a little tomato on my plate. My mother-in-law, 2 different colored vegetables on the plate every night. My husband, if he gets vegetables 3 times a week, because I tend to forget to buy them. I don't like peas, so I don't cook those, but try to increase your fruits and vegetables, decrease the saturated fats. Water, 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 water. Unless you have a condition, congestive heart failure or anything else, or too much water, you're literally gonna drown in your body. Water is essential for life. My muscles cannot contract if I'm not well hydrated, and my heart is a muscle. So quite often you see people go into cardiac arrest, cardiac failure. These people don't, some of them don't drink enough water. Worst case, you're dehydrated, you get delirious, you don't know who you are, you don't know where you are. And think, if you're being taken into the hospital in a state of delirium, what conclusion may a doctor make? They are likely to go off going, oh, maybe we're experiencing some dementia. You're just dehydrated. Your brain isn't working very, very well. Same thing with anxiety and stress. Have a new client, until they determined that it was anxiety she was feeling. They were going steaming ahead thinking that, and depression, that she was developing Alzheimer's. So know your body, know what it can do, have a great healthcare team, and then we come down to the last one. Things before I forget. Shortness of breath, again, thinking about your baseline. Shortness of breath at rest, very different than shortness of breath on exertion. If we walked, if we've been doing a little bit of exercise, we expect our breathing and our respiratory rate to increase. That's part of cardiac training. Oh, we're not doing that. But at rest, if you become, and you're gasping for that air, that is a problem. I need to either call my doctor if something is going on. Pressure, different from any normal pressure you may feel on the chest. Again, under my chest is my heart and my lungs, organs that are vital for me to keep on keeping on. Tingling in the fingers and toes, peripheral neuropathy, maybe an onset, or tingling on one side of the body. Excessive sweating, again, you're not doing anything. If you're past menopause, good times, then you know, I should not be sweating this much. And, oh, wait for it. Oh, wait for it. Nobody can, oh, you're there? Oh, they don't talk about that. And my husband said, why are you and your girlfriends, this is all you talk about? I said, because it is overwhelming and it is taking up so much of our lives right now. And it is, and especially when it's resulted in no children, I'm like, well, this was a jolly big waste of time, right? Sudden vision loss. I was seeing well this afternoon, I'm experiencing vision loss. My vision is getting blurry. Prolonged confusion. This is not good. Wounds that never seem to heal, again, maybe diabetic or maybe becoming diabetic, right? Being very, very careful. So the last thing that we say for number 1 in our top 10 is being active. Exercise can mitigate a lot of the effects of aging. Exercise helps our balance. It can help us with our strength, our mobility, and our flexibility. When we exercise, we release endorphins into the body, the chemicals that make us feel good, right? And we know people take dopamine, lots of other things, or the people, aren't they lucky? And I'm being very sarcastic, the government gives them all the drugs they want for free. They were a little bit more active with a little bit more purpose in their lives, maybe we would see less addiction. Facilitated addiction, you can tell where I feel about that one. So when we exercise, we can decrease our depression, we can improve our mental acuity, my brain is better, it's working differently, I look good, I feel good, you can reduce the risks of certain types of diabetes, heart disease, breast cancer, help regulate your blood pressure, osteoporosis, right, that lowering in our bone density, increasing the risk of fractures that we've talked about before, that when we're weakened, our mobility, it becomes a vicious cycle. So working with different populations, exercise for me, different, and within all of you, people say, oh, They're all little people, so what does that have to do with anything, right? Variance amongst all of you. So before anybody, even a typical healthy person, needs to be cleared by a doctor, or I do a Part Q assessment on them to make sure that they are safe for exercise. So we are not training for the Olympics, although you may be, right? Little people, I just saw lots of videos out there. Everybody's reason is different, but when I started in class with my participants 65 and over, the 4 components of exercise: cardio, respiratory strengthening, strength training, flexibility, and balance. Because I only have 45 minutes with them, again, I ask the question, I know the answer to, what is your primary focus? Number 1 is balance. Without balance, getting through the day is very challenging. So cardio has become something, as we progress, I tell them you can do this, different tempo and things like that, if cardio is important for you. Most people are not doing it on their own. We do not need to be going to a gym, and let's face it, a gym is intimidating. Very intimidating. We see all the influencers there out with their cameras and their little tops and their butt, right? And oh, they want the men to be looking at them, but God help you if you look at you, then you're in big trouble. Stay home, look at yourself in the mirror if you're that much of a narcissist. Most people are going there because they want to feel better. So, at home. Dorothy said there's no place like at home, so I promote physical therapy, and for me, therapeutic fitness at home. When I work with my clients, teaching them, making sure they know their rehab exercise, we're doing it at home. I'm realistic. Where do you sit most of the day? I can guarantee it's the chair that's in front of the television. Perfect. It's a chair that's comfortable for you, probably has armrests to help you up, and commercials. When a commercial comes on, that is the time to do something. We don't need any of the drugs they're advertising, because they don't even tell us what it's for, just all the side effects that, my God, why would anybody take this? Wow. Or the anti-aging, or things that make me feel bad. So the commercial comes on, do a little bit in the commercial, the program comes back on, go back to working the commercial. Building, again, routines. You're sitting there, you may as well take advantage of the time. So I wouldn't say devising a plan of 150 minutes. Some people do, I don't know, I would not be able to find 2 hours to be able to do this individually on my own, but I can break it up into more manageable bits when I'm sitting in my chair. Pools for you are good, but again, access to a pool, not always that easy. For you, again, we know arthritis, osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, spinal stenosis, things like that. Being in the water is great. You know that. It's buoyant, it's less taxing on our joints. I tell some of my clients that we can go down to the pool, we can do some standing exercises at the pool. Because again, it's not going to be as tiring, depleting energy from you. So things like that, and I'm thinking, Susan, I might want to ask you if everybody would like another one. I'm going to show you, because I want you to leave today with some things that you can do on your own that are primarily helpful, no matter what type of skeletal dysplasia you may or may not have. Squats, everybody may have heard about a squat. I have eliminated squatting. If not done with the right technique, you will cause more injury to yourself than benefits. So again, you've got a chair. I've replaced it with the sit to stand, which is a transfer. So again, some people, great, they can stand up without using the arms, wonderful. I would consider that more for balance. But if you've got a chair with armrest, some people do use their rollators in front. Little hesitant, but again, that brings you the security. That using the body mechanics we've talked about before, I need to prepare my body to stand up. If I'm sitting nice and tall and I go to stand, automatically my body leans forward. So we prepare to stand by leaning forward. I open my feet into a wider base of support. My hands are on my armrest and I push up. I stand, then I stick my bottom out, and then I sit down and control myself into the seat. So sit to stand. We can do that as I'm standing. I'm strengthening the muscles in my legs, my quadriceps.
The only problem with the glasses, our legs can't touch the
So that becomes it, right? So again, seating, and that is a consideration for everybody. I love when I go, I see families that have been moved out of the house, children that called max sold, started auctioning off all their parents' things, starting at $1. That's good for my husband who likes auctions. But then I come into these condos, a lot around here I've been to, very small. And I don't see anything of a lifetime. Where is some of the stuff? We've all got stuff. My stuff makes me happy to look at it. My husband's stuff, not so much. G.I. Joe doesn't bring me as much joy as it does for him. So height of chairs, beds, and toilets, very, very important. The rule of 90, so we go back to geometry class. I should be sitting on a surface with my ankles, knees, and hips at 90 degrees. When my hips are higher than my knees, it's putting more weight on my knees, and the tendency is for me to tip forward. When knees are higher than the hips, the weight is transferring to the terminal end of my spine. Spinal stenosis does not like that very, very much. So again, the balance, stools, so seating is not the same for everybody. And I can tell because the daughter's gone, but beautiful, beautiful furniture, but it's not appropriate for her mother, right? The legs like you, they're dangling there. When we don't have support under our feet, and I'm getting really acrobatic, we have a femoral artery that runs down the back of the leg. When there's no support under the foot, the pressure builds up. Just like when people sit on the toilet for too long, my legs are getting numb. Why is that? Because we're cutting off the blood flow. Blood flow, very important. So stools where you can, or if you've got somebody who's crafty, I don't believe we still have the men's woodworking group at the church, but your church may have one where they can build a platform designed for you so that you can sit in a proper seating position, right? So that's the adaptability and change. So if we've got the concept, you say, okay, well, I can't do that. How can I modify it so this will be possible for me? Yes, go ahead, interrupt any time.
Can I just say?
Yes.
A lot of times I sit with my stool.
Good, and then now, see, you've got the knee
For me,
supported, yeah.
For me, that, yeah, I'm good, I'm like this and this and.
Yeah.
And.
And you've got your knees supported, which is very, very important. Right
Well,
now,
no, not on,
the foot is under the chair,
yeah.
right? So if you
I
find,
sit a lot on the stool.
sorry, on the
So
floor,
my feet are as if you
Yes.
flat on the ground.
that's right. So we adapt as we can. One thing with footstools out, if you use them, I have a very bad, my left side of my body is my damaged side. But sometimes I don't have the support under my lower leg. I've got it down here. The cat generally decides he wants to spend the evening on my lap and he's applying pressure. Now I can get to 180, but he's stretching it out and I'm like, oh, you gotta get off the lap, go over there for a bit. But I guess he loves me so much. He's very old and I'm trying to be very patient because he can be a stress trigger for me as well. So good body mechanics. So if you can, and it may be, the toilet may be a better height, wherever you can practice that sit to stand. Leaning forward, pushing up. I'm also strengthening the back of my arms, secondary muscles that help me to push. Functional movement, very, very important. Spinal stenosis, oh, I know. So the whole spine being connected, again, sitting comfortably, hopefully with feet on the ground, placing your hands on your knees, and we can all visualize, I'm sure you've seen many models of the spine. I just start bending the neck forward, visualizing that I'm bending each vertebrae one by one, and then I'm sliding down my leg. Again, thinking when you bend forward with spinal stenosis, the foramen, right, the nerves come out the spinal column. Some of the changes as we get older, that space narrows, maybe developmental, or maybe something wear and tear on the body. So when we bend forward, we decompress the spine, give the nerves more room to move, and nerves innovate our muscles. So that is something very easy. So sitting up, just hands on the knees and just rolling down, and you will start to feel a slight stretch in the back. That I think is very important for you. Keep moving, doing what you can when you can. Other ones that are easy, marching in your chair. A high knee march. My hips need to work so I can clear the floor. When my knees are 180 degrees fully straight, I am fully weight bearing. Less than that, my weight bearing decreases. So again, you Can't just straighten the knee. If I feel pain, I don't straighten past the point of pain. I listen to my body, and I'm just trying to straighten the knee, point the toes, and bend. Start with 5 repetitions of exercises. You find that easy. Say, okay, in an hour, I will do 5 more, or in 3 hours, and slowly progress yourself. But listen to the body. Arms again, if you use walkers, rollators, you can hold them in front and just move the shoulders forward and back. Susan, may I use your cane? Other ones as well, make it a little easier, active assisted. I can hold my cane in both hands. If I've got one shoulder that's not as strong as the other one can help it up. Minimum height we need to maintain our independence safely is 90 degrees, arms straight out in front. So if we can bring it up, it's wonderful, but be careful with turning and twisting movements. So being able to raise the arms important, being able to straighten the knees and raise our hips, I think are some of the most important. And again, I tell people build it in. If you're like my mother and you put lotion on your body every day, good time to do that rolling forward. Now I would come down a little bit more. You just start at the knees and just go, and the head is tucked in. Hands, again, try to move the hands, wiggle the hands, making fist squeezing, spreading fingers, important, clasping fingers together, making a fist, anything that feels good. Hands are critical, shoulders are critical, hips and knees, very important, and being able to get up from seated to standing. I will leave you on note, in the community, interestingly, I've had thousands of clients, I have not had a little person. I'm not going to say yet. So you paid a lot of taxes. I work for St. Elizabeth SE Health, but most of our contracts are paid for by the government. If you're over 65, some people who are younger than 65 with certain conditions. A doctor would send a referral in, and again, we are not training. Some people, the younger ones, a more active form of rehab. For those over 65, the focus is on maintenance. We want to maintain at least our functional ability today. And the more you do on your own, when you take ownership for yourself, the more you'll be able to do down the road. Me coming in once a week for 30 minutes, the clients who only do it then are never doing as well as the ones who are doing it twice a day, 7 days a week, and have progressed themselves by the time I'm able to do that for them. So it may be something you want to think about. You may need some new techniques. I'm finding it difficult to get from a lying position to seated, from seated to standing. My mobility is declining, my strength, my balance, all of the things we work on, or home adaptations. We want to